Starvation Reservoir, which is about 3 miles north of Duchesne, Utah, has been compared to a mini Lake Powell. Its steep cliffs, Spartan facilities, and relative isolation give it the kind of rustic feel that recreational professionals call semi-primitive. But the water behind the 150-foot-high, 2,920-foot-long Starvation Dam is crucial for other reasons to the residents of the Uinta Basin and to the operation of the Central Utah Project. The reservoir, part of the Starvation collection system, develops water for irrigation and M&I use, as well as provides flood control and fish and wildlife benefits. The 167,000 acre-foot reservoir diverts Duchesne River water into the Strawberry River via two other project features, the Night Diversion Dam and the Starvation Feeder Conduit. So that makes knowing exactly how much water the reservoir holds very important to the Central Utah Water Conservancy District, and that's why a handful of state and federal water specialists were out on Starvation's quiet waters recently. Although there were a lot of references to the SS Minnow, the work this team from the Bureau of Reclamation and the Central Utah Water Conservancy District were doing was pretty important. Using a combination of high technology and good old-fashioned boat piloting, both agencies were trying to figure out exactly how much water was in the reservoir.
We're doing a sonar survey of the area capacity of Starvation Reservoir. For the water districts, it's important because we can use that area capacity to calculate the inflows and also manage the water.
Two teams were at work. One team was using GPS and sonar to keep them on that grid, which entailed crisscrossing the reservoir in a U pattern. And that won't be anything that can be done quickly, since Scott says the surface area of Starvation is about 3,600 acres, or a little more than 3,500 football fields. Meanwhile, Ryan, Luke, and Jeff Humphrey, both Reclamation civil engineers, were skirting the 31 miles of reservoir shoreline to find the point where the water stops and the land begins.
What we do is we put in an offset, and that's the distance we'll stay from the reservoir, 15 feet or 20 feet or whatever. That way we get around trees and rocks. And Jeff here, he watches to make sure we have a signal. Also, on some of the bays and inlets, we'll need to walk the shoreline. We can't get close enough for the boat. And he does a lot of that as well.
The data both teams collect will be compared with historical maps and photos to show how the reservoir and hence the water levels are changing. Reclamation developed this method several years ago because it wanted to know how sedimentation was affecting capacity. Dams pass water more easily than they pass sediment, which can cause a reservoir to lose capacity over time. Water districts quickly saw the value in using the underwater topography maps to figure out how changes underwater could ultimately affect water deliveries to water users. Since then, Reclamation has done 4 such surveys at East Canyon, Hiram, Steinecker, and Wanship reservoirs, and it has several more in the planning stages.
Okay, with the sedimentation, when a river comes into an inlet like this and hits the reservoir, the river slows down in velocity. The water slows down and all the particulate matter in it begins to drop out, especially the heavier stuff. So over time, as it comes down, it'll build up a little bit of sediment every year as it goes through its normal spring and winter cycle.
The sedimentation affects the available volume of the reservoir, which available water for downstream users. And in this case, like Troy was saying, that the sediment can sometimes reach the dam. And from this inlet, that's unlikely, but if you got the offstream diversion from the Duchesne River that's on the other end of the reservoir, that could.
That's why these types of surveys are important to both Reclamation and the water users. Storage of water in Starvation Reservoir began in November 1969, and Starvation Dam was completed in March 1970. Starvation Reservoir is expected to fluctuate from year to year depending on available water supplies. The reservoir is filled with surplus winter and spring flows, with the maximum content for the year usually reached between April and June. Releases will normally be made during the summer and early fall months. About 75% of the time, there will be holdover water in the reservoir at the end of the year, which may be used for the next irrigation season. The work this team is doing will help reclamation and the water districts predict the other 25%.